After 3.5 years of going to therapy, I can tell you that there is no average session. The only thing that's constant is the place, the time, and the length, at least for me. Everything else is completely different. At the beginning, the first probably 6 months, I always was thinking about what am I going to say in the session, what I want to cover, and all of that. And what I can tell you is that pretty much no session we actually talked about the things that I thought we were going to talk. There were always something completely different that through the therapeutic process, we found that that one was actually what was bothering me, not the thing that I actually thought it was. And then I pretty much decided that I'm just going to let my subconscious and my instinct guide me on what I tell my therapist. Of course, I was thinking a lot about it before therapy and stuff like that, but I never knew what I was going to say in that therapy. And so going there for 3.5 years, the one thing that I can tell you is that there are going to be bouts of negative sessions. Those are the sessions that end up negatively in the meaning that I just feel bad and I don't see a way out. This case is pretty much where my trauma is pushing out in the open completely. And there are going to be sessions where I'm going to be full of energy, full of happiness. Like I'm going to be super energetic and just say like, yes, this is amazing. I am on top of the world and stuff like that. And then, of course, it's going to drop down. So I call this kind of like the sinus curve. It goes up and down. And what I found out and what we talked about it with my therapist is that the at the beginning, those bouts are going to be really extreme. So when I started, the first few sessions were horrible for me. I was absolutely negative, and everything else that came from it was just trauma, negativity. I couldn't see a way out, and all of that stuff. And it was really weighing heavily on me, on my whole body. I was full of cortisol, anger, sadness, fear, pretty much all of the negative emotions. But then, when at a moment I processed a trauma, boom, it went up. I was full of energy, full of excitement, and what the future is going to bring to me. And that was actually, usually that lasted only a week or so. And then boom, it went down really fast again. And those were the beginning, like 6 or 7 months. And then slowly, what actually happened was that this sinus curve wasn't as heavy, but it started to kind of like slowly mellow down. That these bouts of happiness, of excitement, of having a lot of adrenaline, serotonin weren't as huge, but also the bouts of having a lot of cortisol, almost depression, weren't also huge as well. So I was able to regulate it more and I was able to focus on the trauma, what triggers was I experiencing at that time, and kind of process them with my therapist so that they wouldn't, not that they wouldn't happen again, but that they wouldn't be as pronounced as they were. Because the triggers and trauma that you have, yes, we can process them, but they will truly never go completely away. What we go through with these sessions is pretty much that we learn, that we teach our body not to store those trauma somewhere in the back of our minds. But what we do is that those defensive mechanisms that were actually present when we were children and stuff like that, that we don't use them as adults because they're not good for us at this time. They may have been good at that time, but not now. And yeah, and so hmm, and yeah, and also within therapy, uh, what I actually one of the most striking things was when I was talking, I actually came into one therapy specifically, completely down, like full of trauma and just, I wouldn't call it depression, but sadness, like profound sadness and not knowing what was going on with me. And the first 30 minutes of therapy, when I was talking, there was nothing. I was still feeling the same way. But then all of a sudden, when I hit the right trigger, the right issue, and when I started talking about this, like, and understanding it, I went from being kind of like in a gloomy state into being neutral. And at the end, I could just feel the whole weight of my body and the whole weight just going away from my body, from my chest, from my shoulders. And it was actually a really profound moment when I saw that. Within that short span of time of 60 minutes, I was able to achieve that. And the more of those moments I had, the more that I understood that I've processed something. And my body is telling me when I process something. I don't necessarily know exactly what I processed the majority of time, but I know I've actually processed it because my body just starts feeling lighter and lighter and just more happiness. I'm getting more adrenaline, more serotonin into my body. And I can feel the difference. And more of these experiences that I have, the more kind of regulated I can be, and the more I can, even within therapy, I can focus myself on actually solving my trauma and my defensive responses versus actually lashing and living them out like I did when I was a child. So, yeah, I never know what's going to happen in therapy. I don't know what's going to happen next week when I have it. I don't know if I'm going to be happy or not. I don't know if I'm going to come out of the therapy sad because at one point that happened. I felt even worse when I was at therapy. But then next week the dam broke and I had I was resolving so much trauma and like just talking through it, which was incredible. So yeah, I never know. But what I do know is that since I started to now where I am 3.5 years ago, uh, it's gotten way better. I feel better. I have more energy and I feel more alive and more determined to understand who I am, to build my own future. And I know I will build it. That's it.